"Take her away," he ordered, his voice harsh again, distant. "I don't have time for this." They threw me into the darkness. The cell door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through my bones, and I was alone. I remember the night like it was yesterday, the tension in the air so thick it suffocated me. The torches flickered against stone walls, casting shadows that danced like demons across the throne room floor. I never thought I'd be here, standing before the most powerful alpha in the realm, my wrists bound in silver chains that burned against my skin. But here I was, a criminal in his eyes, about to face judgment from a man who had no idea he was staring at his destiny. The Alpha King sat on his throne like a god carved from marble and rage. Kalen. Even his name tasted dangerous on my tongue, though I'd never spoken it aloud in his presence. His eyes swept over me with all the warmth of a winter storm, calculating, dismissing, already moving on to the next problem, the next threat to his reign. I was nothing to him, just another prisoner dragged before him in the dead of night. Another body to be dealt with and forgotten. "This is the one?" His voice cut through the silence, like a blade through flesh. Deep. Commanding. The kind of voice that made grown men drop to their knees. "Yes, my king," the guard beside me answered, shoving me forward. I stumbled but caught myself, refusing to fall before him. Refusing to show weakness. Kalen's jaw tightened. The spy who's been feeding information to the rebel packs. I wanted to laugh. Spy? Is that what they were calling me? I'd been trying to survive, trying to stay hidden, trying to keep the truth buried deep enough that no one would ever dig it up. But survival looks a lot like betrayal when you're standing on the wrong side of an alpha's temper. "I'm not a spy," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. His eyes snapped to mine then, really seeing me for the first time, and the impact of that gaze hit me like a physical blow. Dark eyes, almost black in the torchlight, with flecks of gold that seemed to burn from within. For a moment, just a heartbeat, something flickered across his face. Confusion. Recognition. But it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by that cold, impenetrable mask of authority. "Everyone says that," he replied, leaning back in his throne. "Right before they're proven guilty." "Then prove it," I challenged, though every instinct screamed at me to stay silent, to bow my head, to disappear into the background like I'd been doing for months. But I couldn't. Not now. Not when his eyes were on me like this, seeing everything and nothing all at once. A dangerous smile curved his lips. "Take her to the dungeons. We'll see how long her defiance lasts." The guards moved toward me, their hands rough as they grabbed my arms. But I didn't look away from Kalen. Couldn't look away. The bond between us hummed beneath my skin, a secret I'd buried so deep I sometimes forgot it existed. But it was there, pulsing with every beat of my heart, screaming at me to tell him, to make him understand. I opened my mouth, to say what, I didn't know, but the words died in my throat when Kalen stood abruptly, his massive frame towering over the throne. He took 3 steps down from the dais, close enough now that I could smell him. Pine and smoke and something wild that made my wolf stir restlessly inside me. "Wait," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, meant only for me. The guards froze. The entire throne room held its breath. "Why do you seem so familiar?" My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. But before I could answer, before I could decide whether to reveal the truth or keep running from it, he stepped back, shaking his head as if clearing away an unwelcome thought. "The Alpha King is about to decide her fate. To stay tuned, please go ahead and tell me your name, the city you're watching from, and subscribe." "Take her away," he ordered, his voice harsh again, distant. "I don't have time for this." And just like that, the moment shattered. They threw me into the darkness like garbage. The cell door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through my bones, and I was alone. Just me and the cold stone walls that wept with moisture, and the stench of fear and desperation that clung to everything down here. The dungeons beneath the palace weren't meant for comfort. They were meant to break you. I pressed my back against the wall and slid down until I was sitting on the filthy floor, my chains rattling with the movement. Every second felt like an eternity. Every breath was a struggle against the panic rising in my chest. I needed to get out. I needed him to notice me. Really notice me. See past whatever lies had been whispered in his ear about who I was and what I'd done. But more than that, I needed to survive the night. Did you see the way he looked at her? A voice drifted through the darkness, coming from somewhere beyond my cell. Guards, talking in hushed tones, thinking the prisoners couldn't hear them. Like he wanted to snap her neck. Another voice replied with a cruel laugh. Or something else entirely. My stomach twisted. They were talking about me. About Kalen. About the way his eyes had lingered on my face just a moment too long. Doesn't matter what he wants, the first guard said. She'll be dead by morning anyway. The king doesn't keep traitors alive, even pretty ones. Dead by morning. The words settled over me like a shroud. Was that my fate? To die in this cell without ever telling him the truth? Without ever revealing that I wasn't his enemy. I was his salvation? Did you hear about the council meeting? The second guard asked, his voice dropping even lower. What about it? There's talk. Whispers. Someone close to the king is working against him. Planning something. My blood ran cold. I pressed closer to the bars, straining to hear every word. You're paranoid, the first guard scoffed. Who would dare betray the Alpha King? Someone smart enough to make it look like an accident. Someone who wants the throne for themselves. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor, growing louder, and the guards fell silent. I held my breath, waiting, listening. A door creaked open somewhere in the distance, and then new footsteps, lighter, more purposeful, approached my cell. I scrambled to my feet, chains clanking, heart racing. Was it Kalen? Had he changed his mind? Had he felt the bond pulling at him the way I felt it pulling at me? But when the figure stepped into the flickering torchlight outside my cell, it wasn't the Alpha King. It was a woman, tall, elegant, with silver hair that cascaded down her back like moonlight. Her eyes were the color of ice, and when they fixed on me, I felt the temperature in the cell drop several degrees. So, she said, her voice smooth as silk and twice as deadly. You're the one causing all the trouble. I didn't recognize her, but I recognized power when I saw it. This woman radiated it like heat from a flame. She was someone important. Someone dangerous. Who are you? I asked, hating how my voice trembled. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Someone who knows exactly who you are, Luna. The word hit me like a slap. Luna. She knew. But how? I'd been so careful, so cautious. I'd buried my scent, hidden my wolf, kept my head down, and my mouth shut for months. How could she possibly know? I don't know what you're talking about. I lied, but we both knew it was useless. Don't waste your breath, she said, pulling a key from her pocket. We need to talk. And we don't have much time. She unlocked my cell and gestured for me to follow her, which was either incredibly stupid or incredibly confident. I chose to follow. What other choice did I have? And she led me through a maze of corridors I didn't recognize, away from the dungeons, deeper into the palace's hidden depths. Why are you helping me? I asked as we walked, my chains making it difficult to keep up with her swift pace. I'm not helping you, she replied without looking back. I'm helping him. There's a difference. Kalen. The king, she corrected sharply. And yes, whether you like it or not, whether he knows it or not, you're bound to him. And right now, that makes you the only person who can save him from what's coming. What's coming? But I already knew. The guard's whispered conversation echoed in my mind. A plot against the throne. Betrayal from within. She stopped abruptly and turned to face me, her ice blue eyes boring into mine. The king has enemies everywhere. In his council. In his pack. Even in his own bed. Her lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it held any humanity. They're going to kill him. And soon. The words should have terrified me, but instead, I felt something else. Rage. Pure, burning rage at the thought of anyone harming him. My wolf surged forward, demanding to be released, demanding blood. Why tell me this? I managed to ask through clenched teeth. Because you're his Luna, she said simply. And a Luna protects her mate, whether he deserves it or not. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed down the corridor behind us. Heavy, purposeful, familiar. Go, the woman hissed, shoving me toward a narrow passage I hadn't noticed. And whatever you do, don't tell him who you are.
Not yet.
If he knows, they'll know, and then you're both dead. She disappeared into the shadows just as Kalen rounded the corner, his eyes blazing with fury when he saw me standing there, unchained, unsupervised, exactly where I shouldn't be. How did you? He started, but I cut him off. We need to talk. Kalen's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, his grip iron tight, and for a moment I thought he might actually drag me back to the cell himself. But then something shifted in his expression. The anger didn't fade. It never quite did with him, but underneath it I saw something else. Confusion, frustration, and beneath that, buried so deep he probably didn't even recognize it himself, fear. You don't get to make demands, he growled, pulling me closer until there were only inches between us. You're a prisoner, a traitor. I'm not your enemy, I said, meeting his gaze head-on, even though everything in me screamed to look away, to submit to the Alpha's authority. And somewhere deep down, you know that. His jaw clenched. What I know is that you were found in restricted areas of the palace, that you've been seen with known rebels, that every piece of evidence points to you being exactly what my advisors say you are. Your advisors are lying to you. Everyone lies to me, he shot back, and there it was, the wound, the crack in his armor. It's what people do when they want something from a king. I don't want anything from you. I lied, because how could I tell him the truth? That I wanted everything? That I wanted him to look at me and finally see what was right in front of him? That I wanted to stop running, stop hiding, stop pretending I was anything other than his? Then what are you doing here? He demanded. Why sneak around my palace? Why resist every interrogation? Why? He stopped abruptly, his eyes narrowing. Why do I feel like I know you? The question hung between us, dangerous and electric. This was my chance. I could tell him. I should tell him. But the silver-haired woman's warning echoed in my mind. If he knows, they'll know, and then you're both dead. Maybe you do know me, I said carefully. Or maybe you just recognize someone who isn't here to hurt you. Pretty words, he said, but his grip on my wrist loosened slightly. But words mean nothing. Actions do. And your actions have condemned you. Then execute me, I challenged, pulling my wrist free from his grasp. If I'm such a threat, if I'm really the traitor you think I am, why are you wasting time? Kill me and be done with it. He stared at me for a long moment, his chest rising and falling with barely controlled emotion. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. You don't understand. You're not just. He cut himself off, shaking his head. There are rules. Processes. Even for traitors. Convenient. Necessary, he countered. I'm not a tyrant. I don't kill on impulse. No, I agreed. You just throw innocent people in dungeons and assume they're guilty. His expression darkened. You were caught. In the wrong place at the wrong time. I interrupted. But that doesn't make me what you think I am. Then what are you? The question came out almost desperate, and I saw it then. The exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of the crown pressing down on him, the burden of suspecting everyone, trusting no one. Who are you really? My breath caught. This was it. The moment of truth. But before I could answer, before I could make the choice that would change everything, a scream shattered the silence. It came from above us, from the main palace, high-pitched and terrified and cut off abruptly. Then came the sound of running feet, shouting voices, the clash of metal on metal. Kalen's entire body went rigid. Stay here, he commanded, already moving toward the stairs. Like hell, I shot back, following him. He didn't argue. Maybe he didn't have time. Maybe he realized, on some instinctive level, that I was safer with him than alone. Either way, we ran together through corridors that suddenly felt like a labyrinth, toward chaos that was unfolding faster than either of us could comprehend.
Blood.
The first thing I smelled when we burst into the throne room was blood. It painted the marble floor in dark pools, splattered across the walls like macabre art. Bodies lay scattered, guards, servants, people whose only crime was being in the wrong place when violence erupted. And in the center of it all stood a man I recognized from the council meetings I'd spied on. Lord Darius. Silver-haired like the woman who'd freed me, but where her eyes held ice, his held fire. Madness. Ambitions so fierce it had twisted him into something monstrous. My king, Darius said, his voice dripping with false courtesy as he turned to face us. How kind of you to join us. Kalen stepped forward, positioning himself between me and the carnage, his body a shield I hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. What have you done? What should have been done years ago? Darius replied, gesturing to the bodies around him. Cleaned house. Removed the obstacles. Prepared for a new reign. You've committed treason, Kalen said, his voice deadly calm.
Too calm.
The kind of calm that preceded a storm. Treason? Darius laughed, the sound echoing off the blood-stained walls. No, my king. I've committed progress. You've been too weak, too merciful, too bound by your precious rules and laws. The pack needs strength. Real strength. Not this, he waved dismissively at Kalen. Watered-down version of power you call leadership. Around us, more of Darius's followers emerged from the shadows.
Too many of them.
Some wore the palace guard uniform. Others were council members, advisors, people Kalen had trusted. The betrayal was total. Absolute. Devastating. I felt Kalen's shock like a physical blow, even though his expression remained impassive. This was his nightmare made real. The people he'd protected, led, sacrificed for, turning on him in his own home. You can't win this, Kalen said quietly. Even if you kill me here, the pack will never accept you as alpha. The crown doesn't transfer through murder. Doesn't it? Darius smiled. History is written by the victors, my king. And I've already won. He raised his hand, and his followers moved forward, weapons drawn, closing in on us from all sides. We were outnumbered, outmaneuvered,
trapped.
But Kalen didn't flinch, didn't back down. He simply stood there, radiating the kind of power that made him a king in the first place. Not the crown, not the throne, but the absolute certainty that he would fight until his last breath. And so would I. I stepped up beside him, ignoring his sharp intake of breath, ignoring the way he tried to push me back behind him. 2 against 20, I said. I've had worse odds. You can't fight, he hissed. You're chained. You're your only ally in this room. I cut him off. So, unless you want to die today, stop arguing and start fighting. For a fraction of a second, something flickered in his eyes.
Surprise.
Respect. Maybe even the beginning of trust. Then Darius's followers attacked, and there was no more time for anything except survival. I'd like to say I fought with grace and precision, but the truth is I fought like a cornered animal, desperate, vicious, using every dirty trick I'd learned in the months I'd spent hiding, running, surviving. The silver chains hampered my movements, burned my skin with every twist and turn, but I used them as weapons, wrapping them around throats, swinging them like whips, letting the very things meant to bind me become tools of destruction. Beside me, Kalen fought like the alpha king he was, powerful, precise, unstoppable. He moved through Darius's followers like death incarnate, every strike calculated to disable, to protect, to maintain control even in the midst of chaos. But there were too many. For every enemy we brought down, 2 more took their place. A blade sliced across my shoulder, and I gasped, stumbling. Immediately, Kalen was there, his hand on my back, steadying me, his body covering mine as he fought off the attacker. Stay close, he commanded, and I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. An hour ago, he'd wanted me dead. Now he was protecting me like I was something precious. But there was no time to laugh. No time to think. Only time to fight, to breathe, to survive another second and then another, hoping that somehow, impossibly, we'd make it through this. You see? Darius called out over the chaos, standing safely behind his army of traitors. You're weak, Kaelin. You always have been.
Too soft.
Too human. The pack deserves better. They deserve a real alpha. They deserve better than a coward who hides behind others, I shouted back, and immediately regretted it when Darius's eyes locked onto me. Ah yes, he said, his smile widening. The little prisoner. I almost forgot about you. He tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Though you're not really a prisoner, are you? You're something else. Something interesting. Kaelin tensed beside me. Leave her out of this. Oh, I don't think so, Darius replied. In fact, I think she's exactly the leverage I need. He gestured to his followers. Take her. Kill him. What happened next occurred in seconds, but it felt like hours. The followers surged forward, separating us, pulling me away from Kaelin even as I fought, clawed, screamed. I saw him reach for me, saw the desperation in his eyes. Not for himself, but for me. And something inside me snapped. The bond. The mate bond I'd been suppressing, hiding, denying for so long. It roared to life like a wildfire, burning away all my carefully constructed walls, flooding through me with a power I'd forgotten I possessed. My wolf surged forward, demanding freedom, demanding blood, demanding protection for what was ours. And I let her. The chains shattered. I felt them break like paper, felt the silver burn away as my transformation began. But this wasn't a normal shift. This was something primal, ancient, fueled by the mate bond and the desperate need to protect. When I emerged from the transformation, I wasn't just a wolf. I was a Luna. The throne room fell silent. Every person, traitor and king alike, stared at me as I stood there in my true form, silver fur gleaming in the torchlight, eyes blazing with power that came from a source deeper than flesh and bone. This was what I'd been hiding. This was who I really was. The Alpha King's true mate. His Luna. His salvation and his doom wrapped into one. Kaelin's face drained of color. No, he whispered. It can't be. You can't be. Surprise, I said, and my voice resonated through the bond between us, making him stagger. Did you really think I was just another prisoner? Darius laughed, but it was the laughter of a man who just realized he'd miscalculated. Well, this is unexpected. The Alpha King's fated mate, hiding right under his nose, and he was too blind to see it. How poetic. Kaelin couldn't seem to form words. He just stood there, staring at me like I'd ripped open reality itself. And maybe I had. Everything he thought he knew, everything he believed about me, about the situation, about his own judgment, all of it was crashing down around him. Why, he finally managed. Why hide? Why not tell me? Because they would have killed me the moment they knew, I replied, my eyes cutting to Darius. This was never just about rebellion or politics. This was about making sure you never found your Luna. Because a king with his true mate is unstoppable. Isn't that right, Darius? The councilman's smile faded. Clever girl. You're not just a traitor. I continued, pieces clicking into place as I spoke. You're working for the rival pack. The Shadow Fangs. They sent you here years ago to infiltrate the court, gain Kaelin's trust, and when the time was right, eliminate both him and anyone who could strengthen his reign. Like his Luna. Silence. Then Kaelin's voice, cold and lethal. Is this true? Darius shrugged. True or not, it doesn't matter now. You're outnumbered. Outplayed. Even with your pretty little Luna, you can't win this fight. Wanna bet? I growled, and then I moved. I'd spent months hiding my abilities, pretending to be weaker than I was, smaller than I was, less than I was. No more. I tore through Darius's followers like they were made of paper, all the fury and frustration of the past months pouring out in a wave of violence that would have terrified me if I'd had time to think about it. But I didn't. I just fought, killed, protected. And beside me, Kaelin did the same. But now we weren't just fighting side by side. We were fighting as one, the mate bond synchronizing our movements, lending us each other's strength, making us something more than the sum of our parts. When he moved left, I moved right. When he struck high, I struck low. We were a perfect weapon, forged in desperation and blood, and a connection that had been inevitable from the moment we were born. Darius's followers fell, one by one, then in groups, until finally it was just us and him, standing in a throne room painted red with betrayal. "You should have told me," Kalen said, not looking at me, his eyes fixed on Darius. "From the beginning, you should have trusted me." "Trust has to be earned," I replied, "even from a king." "Fair enough." He raised his sword. "Lord Darius, for the crimes of treason, conspiracy, and murder, I sentence you." "Wait," Darius interrupted, and something in his voice made us pause. He was smiling again, but this time it was the smile of a man with one last card to play. "You really think I'd come here without a backup plan?" The floor beneath us shuddered. Then again, harder. Cracks spider-webbed across the marble, and from somewhere deep below, I heard something roar. "What did you do?" Kalen demanded. "Insurance," Darius said pleasantly. "There's enough explosive powder beneath this palace to level it, and everything in a 3-mile radius. If I don't walk out of here alive in the next 5 minutes, this whole place becomes a crater." My blood ran cold. He was bluffing. He had to be bluffing. But the conviction in his eyes told me otherwise. "You're insane," I breathed. "You'll die too." "Better dead than defeated," Darius replied. "So here's my offer. Let me walk away, let me leave the kingdom, and I'll tell you where the trigger is. You can save your precious palace, your pack, all the innocent people sleeping in their beds right now with no idea they're about to die. Or," he paused dramatically, "you can kill me, feel good about your justice, and watch everything burn." Kalen's sword didn't waver. "You're lying." "Am I? Do you really want to take that chance?" The seconds ticked by. I could feel Kalen's rage through the bond, his desire to end this, to make Darius pay for everything he'd done. But I could also feel his doubt, his fear. Not for himself, but for the thousands of innocent lives that hung in the balance. "Don't do it," I said quietly. "Don't let him win. If I don't, they all die. If you do, he'll do this again. And again. And next time, you might not be so lucky." Kalen's jaw clenched. I watched him struggle with a decision, watched the weight of the crown pressing down on him, turning what should have been simple into something impossibly complex. This was what it meant to be king. Not glory or power, but impossible choices and no good answers. Finally, he lowered his sword. "Go." "No." I lunged forward, but Kalen caught my arm. "Trust me," he said, and something in his voice made me freeze.
"Please."
"Trust me." Darius's smile widened as he backed toward the door. "A wise choice, my king. Don't worry, I'll send a postcard from." He never finished the sentence. The silver-haired woman materialized behind him like a ghost, her hand flashing out, and Darius's eyes went wide with shock. He looked down at the blade protruding from his chest, then back up at Kalen. "The trigger," he gasped, blood bubbling from his lips. "The explosives." "Were disarmed an hour ago," the woman said calmly, withdrawing her blade. "Did you really think we didn't know about your little insurance policy?" Darius crumpled to the ground, dead before he hit the marble. The woman looked at Kalen and bowed. "Your Majesty." "Lady Sarah," Kalen acknowledged, his voice steady despite everything. "I should have known you were involved." "Someone had to keep you alive," she replied, glancing at me. "Though it looks like you finally found better protection. The aftermath of battle is never clean. Bodies had to be moved, blood had to be scrubbed from marble, and the traitors who'd survived had to be rounded up and dealt with. Through it all, Kalen moved with mechanical efficiency, giving orders, making decisions, being the king his people needed him to be. But he didn't look at me. Not once. Not even when I tried to approach him, tried to explain. He just kept moving, kept working, kept that impenetrable mask firmly in place. "Give him time," Lady Sarah said, appearing beside me as I watched him from across the throne room. "You've shattered his entire worldview. That's not something a person recovers from in an hour. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did, she interrupted gently. You meant to hide it, to protect yourself, to survive. And you did survive. But survival comes with a price. What if he can't forgive me? The question came out smaller than I intended. Then he's a fool, Sarah replied. But give him a chance not to be. She walked away, leaving me alone in a throne room full of people, and I'd never felt more isolated in my life. I'd saved him. We'd saved each other. But the look on his face when he'd realized what I was, who I was, that wasn't gratitude. That was betrayal. Hours passed. The throne room emptied. Servants came and went, cleaning, repairing, erasing the evidence of violence as if it had never happened. And still Kalen didn't come to me, didn't speak to me, didn't acknowledge my existence beyond the occasional glance that lasted half a second before he looked away. Finally, when the sun was beginning to rise and I was seriously considering just walking out of the palace and never coming back, he approached. His footsteps echoed in the empty throne room, deliberate and slow, and when he stopped in front of me, his expression was unreadable. I should have known, he said quietly. The bond. I felt it the moment you walked into this room, but I didn't understand what it was. I thought it was just, he shook his head. I'm an idiot. You're not. I am. He cut me off. I was so focused on threats from outside that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. You tried to tell me. You were arrested, thrown in a cell, nearly executed, and his voice cracked. I almost killed my own mate. But you didn't, I said softly. You hesitated. Some part of you knew. That's not good enough. He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there nearly broke me.
Pain. Guilt. Self-loathing.
You were right not to tell me. If Darius had known who you were earlier, you'd be dead now. I put you in danger through my own blindness. Kalen, I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Be a king and a mate. Every choice I make affects thousands of people. How do I balance that with what you need? What we need? I stepped closer, closing the distance between us until I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the exhaustion in his eyes that mirrored my own. You do what you did tonight. You make the hard choices. You protect your pack. And you let me protect you. You shouldn't have to. That's what a Luna does, I interrupted. We're not fragile things to be locked away and protected. We're warriors. Partners. We stand beside our mates, not behind them. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching mine. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached out and touched my face, his hand trembling slightly. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I agreed, and was rewarded with the ghost of a smile. But you're stuck with me anyway. Fate doesn't care about deserve. I wanted to kill him, Kalen confessed, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Darius. I wanted to tear him apart with my bare hands for what he did. For what he tried to do to you. The rage, he closed his eyes. I've never felt anything like it. That's the mate bond, I explained. It amplifies everything. The need to protect. The desire to possess. The absolute certainty that you'd burn the world down to keep me safe. Is that how you feel? His eyes opened, pinning me with an intensity that stole my breath. Every second of every day, I admitted. It's why I had to hide. Because if anyone had seen me look at you the way I wanted to, they would have known. And then we both would have died. His hand slid from my face to the back of my neck, pulling me closer until our foreheads touched. The bond between us hummed with contentment, finally satisfied to have us this close, this connected. No more hiding. No more hiding, I agreed. But Kalen, you need to understand, being your Luna won't be easy. There are still people out there who want you dead. The Shadow Fangs won't stop just because Darius failed. And every enemy you have automatically becomes my enemy too. I know. And I have secrets. Things about my past, about where I came from, that I haven't told you. Things that might. I don't care. He pulled back enough to look at me properly. I don't care where you came from or what you've done. You're my Luna. My mate. Nothing else matters. You say that now, I whispered. But He kissed me. The world stopped. Everything I'd been about to say, every warning and doubt and fear, vanished in the press of his lips against mine. This wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft or tentative or careful. This was desperation and relief and need and claim all wrapped into one devastating moment that rewrote every assumption I'd had about what a kiss could be. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone dark with something that was part alpha king, part mate, and all dangerous. No more doubts. No more running. We face whatever comes next together. Together, I repeated, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. But if you ever try to lock me in a dungeon again, I'm going to.
Yeah.
He smiled, a real smile this time, full of mischief and heat and promise. What are you going to do, Luna? I smiled back, showing teeth. I guess you'll have to wait and find out. Dawn broke over the palace, painting everything in shades of gold and pink that seemed obscene after the darkness of the night before. But maybe that was fitting. Maybe that's how life worked. Moments of beauty stolen from between the cracks of chaos. We stood together on the balcony overlooking the Packlands, and I watched as Kaelin's people began to emerge from their homes, saw them notice the guards posted at unusual places, the tension that still hung in the air, the signs that something had happened during the night. By noon, everyone would know. About the betrayal. About the battle.
About me.
Are you ready for this? Kaelin asked, his hand finding mine. Once I announce you as Luna, there's no going back. You'll be bound to this kingdom, to these people, to me. Forever. Forever's a long time. I mused, then squeezed his hand. Good thing I don't have anywhere else to be. This isn't a joke, he said, but I could hear the smile in his voice. The Luna ceremony is sacred. Binding. Once the pack accepts you, you're one of us for life. And if they don't accept you, they will. I interrupted with more confidence than I felt. Or will make them. He laughed, the sound rusty from disuse, but genuine. There's the warrior I fell for. You fell for me when I was in chains, covered in dungeon filth, and accused of treason. I pointed out. Your taste is questionable at best. My taste is perfect, he countered, pulling me closer. I chose you, didn't I? Fate chose me, I corrected. You just got lucky. Lucky, he repeated, his expression growing serious.
Yes.
Despite everything, despite the pain and the betrayal and the blood, I'm lucky. Because I found you. The words should have felt too heavy, too dramatic for a morning conversation on a balcony. But they didn't. They felt right. True. Like a promise and a prayer and a beginning all at once. Behind us, I heard Lady Sarah clear her throat. Your Majesty, the council is assembling. They're demanding answers about last night. Let them wait, Kaelin said, not looking away from me. For the first time in my life, the kingdom can wait. That's very romantic, Sarah said dryly. But the kingdom really can't wait. You have about 30 seconds before they storm up here, and I don't think you want to announce your Luna while you both look like you've been through a war. She had a point. We were both still covered in dried blood and dirt, our clothes torn, exhaustion hanging off us like cloaks. Not exactly the image of power and unity we needed to project. Tonight, Kaelin decided. We'll hold the ceremony tonight. That gives us time to prepare, to plan, to figure out how to convince a bunch of stuffy old wolves that a former prisoner is the perfect Luna? I suggested. Something like that. A commotion erupted from inside the palace. Raised voices, the sound of arguing, footsteps approaching fast. The council wasn't waiting 30 seconds. They were here now. Your Majesty. An elderly wolf burst onto the balcony, his face flushed with anger and fear. Is it true? Lord Darius, the bodies. What happened here? Other council members poured out behind him, all talking at once, demanding answers, explanations, justice. Their eyes slid over me dismissively, seeing only the prisoner from last night, not understanding what I was or what I meant to their king. Kaelin stepped forward, and his presence silenced them immediately. That was his power, not volume or aggression, but simply the weight of his authority, the absolute certainty that he was in control even when everything was falling apart. Lord Darius committed treason, he said simply. He attempted a coup, working with the Shadowfang Pack to destabilize our kingdom. He failed.
He's dead.
End of discussion. But the prisoners, one of them started, are being dealt with. Kalen cut him off. As is every other traitor who participated in last night's events. My spy master, Lady Sarah, is conducting a full investigation. Anyone with information about the conspiracy should report to her immediately. And her? Another council member pointed at me. The prisoner, who was with you during the battle. What's her role in all this? This was it. The moment where Kalen could either claim me or dismiss me, could either announce what I was or keep me hidden for another day, another week, another lifetime of pretending. His hand found mine again, and his fingers laced through mine with a possessiveness that left no room for interpretation. She's my Luna, he said clearly. My fated mate. Tonight, we'll hold the bonding ceremony, and tomorrow, she'll be introduced to the pack as your future queen. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then chaos erupted. Your Majesty, you can't be serious. A prisoner? A suspected traitor? We need time to investigate her background. The pack will never accept. Enough. Kalen's voice cracked like thunder, and every wolf in the vicinity felt the force of his alpha command. They fell silent immediately, some dropping to their knees involuntarily. I am your king. I have found my Luna. That is not a debate or a discussion. That is reality. Anyone who has a problem with it can challenge me directly. No one spoke. No one moved. The challenge was clear: accept me as Luna, or face the Alpha King in combat. And judging by the lack of volunteers, no one was stupid enough to take that option. The ceremony will be held tonight at moonrise, Kalen continued, his voice softer but no less commanding. The entire pack is invited to witness and celebrate. And anyone who speaks against my Luna will answer to me personally. He didn't wait for response. He simply turned and led me back inside, leaving the council standing there in shocked silence. That went well, I said once we were safely behind closed doors. Kalen laughed, the sound slightly unhinged. That was a disaster. They'll come around. Some of them will, he agreed. The others will plot and scheme and try to find ways to undermine you. Being Luna isn't just about standing beside me and looking pretty. It's about politics and power and proving yourself worthy of the title every single day. I'm not afraid of politics, I said. And I'm definitely not afraid of some old wolves who think they know better than fate. He pulled me closer, his hands sliding to my waist. You should be afraid. Some of those old wolves are dangerous. So am I reminded him. Or did you forget the part where I tore through Darius's followers like paper? I didn't forget, he murmured, and something in his voice made heat pool low in my stomach. Watching you fight, seeing your true power, it was the most beautiful and terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Terrifying? In the best possible way. His lips found the sensitive spot below my ear, and I shivered. You're magnificent, Luna. And mine. Possessive much? You have no idea, he growled against my skin. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to lock you away somewhere safe, where nothing can ever hurt you again. It's taking all my self-control not to do exactly that. Don't you dare, I warned. I didn't survive everything I've survived just to be locked in a gilded cage, even if you're the one holding the key. I know. He pulled back, his expression torn between desire and frustration. But tonight, when we complete the bonding ceremony, that instinct will get stronger. The mate bond will be fully active, and you'll feel it too. The need to protect, to possess, to never let each other out of sight. Sounds intense. It is, he confirmed. And once it's done, there's no one doing it. Are you sure you want this? You could walk away now. Leave the kingdom. Make a life somewhere else, somewhere safer.
No.
I cut him off with absolute certainty. I'm not walking away. I'm not running. I'm staying right here, by your side, exactly where fate put me. Relief flooded his expression. Good. Because I don't think I could let you go even if you tried. A knock at the door interrupted whatever I was about to say. Lady Sarah entered without waiting for permission, her expression somewhere between amused and exasperated. Your Majesty, your Luna needs to prepare for tonight. That means bathing, proper clothes, and about 6 hours of lessons on pack politics and Luna duties that she should have been learning her entire life, but didn't because she was too busy hiding. I'm standing right here, I pointed out. I know, Sarah replied. That's why I'm addressing you in the third person. It's what passes for humor in my family. She turned to Kaelin. You have meetings with the council, the guard captain, and about 15 other people who need immediate decisions from you. The kingdom doesn't stop just because you found your Luna. Kaelin sighed. I know. Then get moving. Both of you. We have 7 hours until moonrise, and none of us can afford to waste a single minute. The next 6 hours were a blur of activity that left my head spinning. Sarah wasn't kidding about the lessons. She dragged me through lesson after lesson on pack hierarchy, Luna responsibilities, ceremony protocols, and approximately 10,000 other details that I was supposed to somehow absorb and remember perfectly by tonight. Repeat it back to me, she commanded for the 100th time as servants fussed with my hair. What do you say when the pack elder presents you with the moonstone? I accept this gift on behalf of the pack and swear to serve as their Luna with wisdom, strength, and grace, I recited. And if someone challenges your right to be Luna, I meet the challenge directly. No hesitation. No fear. A Luna who backs down from a challenge isn't worthy of the title.
Good.
Sarah nodded approvingly. You're learning. Maybe you won't embarrass us all tonight after all. Your confidence is overwhelming, I said dryly. She smiled. If I thought you couldn't handle this, I wouldn't have helped you survive. But you can. You're stronger than you know. The servant stepped back, and Sarah turned me toward the mirror. I barely recognized myself. The dress they'd put me in was stunning. Deep blue silk that flowed like water, with silver embroidery that caught the light. My hair had been braided with silver thread, and someone had used subtle makeup to emphasize my features without making me look like a completely different person. I looked like a Luna, like someone worthy of standing beside the Alpha King. Don't let it go to your head, Sarah warned, reading my expression. The dress is just window dressing. What matters is what you do once you're wearing it. I know. Do you? She studied me carefully. Because once you complete the ceremony, there's no going back. You'll be bound to this pack for life. Their joys will be your joys. Their pain will be your pain. And their enemies will absolutely become your enemies. I'm ready, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. Sarah's expression softened slightly. I believe you are.
Come on.
It's time. The ceremony grounds were ancient, predating the palace by centuries. Massive stones formed a circle around a central clearing, each one carved with runes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The entire pack had gathered, thousands of wolves, all watching, waiting, judging. Kaelin stood in the center of it all, dressed in formal ceremonial robes that made him look less like the king I'd argued with and more like something out of legend. When his eyes found mine across the crowd, something in my chest pulled tight. This was real. This was happening. Lady Sarah guided me forward, and the crowd parted. I walked through them slowly, feeling their eyes on me, hearing their whispers. Some were curious. Some were hostile.
Some were simply confused.
But I kept my head high and my step steady, refusing to show any hint of doubt. When I reached the center, Kaelin extended his hand. I took it, and the bond between us flared bright enough that I half expected everyone else to see it. The pack elder stepped forward, an ancient wolf whose hair was white as snow and whose eyes held the weight of centuries. We gather tonight under the full moon to witness the bonding of Alpha and Luna, he intoned, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. Kaelin Shadowthorn, Alpha King of the Silver Moon Pack, has claimed his fated mate. Do you, assembled pack, accept this claim? Silence. For one terrible moment, I thought no one would respond, that they'd reject me, reject us, and this whole thing would fall apart before it even began. Then one voice called out, "I accept." Then another. Then a dozen more, until the acceptance rolled through the crowd like thunder, growing louder with each wolf who added their voice. Not everyone accepted. I could see the holdouts, the ones who stayed silent, their faces tight with disapproval. But they were the minority. Most of the pack, whether out of loyalty to their king or genuine acceptance, were willing to give me a chance. The elder nodded, satisfied. The pack has spoken. The bonding may proceed. He held out a smooth white stone that seemed to glow from within. "Ilara, do you accept the responsibilities and burdens of being Luna?" I took the stone, feeling its weight in my palm. "I accept this gift on behalf of the pack, and swear to serve as their Luna with wisdom, strength, and grace." "And do you accept this Alpha as your mate, bound by fate and sealed by blood?" "I do." The elder turned to Kalen. "And do you accept this woman as your Luna, bound by fate and sealed by blood?" "I do." Kalen's voice rang out clear and certain, leaving no room for doubt. "Then by the power vested in me by the moon and the pack, I declare this bonding complete." The elder raised his hands. "Let no one tear asunder what fate has joined." The moonstone in my hand flared with brilliant white light, and I felt the bond between Kalen and me lock into place with an intensity that drove me to my knees. He caught me, his arms strong and steady, and the light consumed us both. I felt everything: his strength, his fears, his absolute, unwavering determination to protect his pack and his Luna. And underneath it all, I felt his love, fierce and possessive and overwhelming in its intensity. "I've got you," he whispered against my hair. "Always." When the light faded, the crowd erupted in celebration. But I barely heard them. All I could focus on was Kalen, on the bond between us that now blazed like a star, on the certainty that whatever happened next, we'd face it together. The celebration lasted until dawn. Food and drink flowed freely, and the pack welcomed me with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Some were genuinely happy. Others were clearly reserving judgment. And a few remained coldly hostile, their eyes following me with calculation that made my skin crawl. "Don't worry about them," Kalen said, pulling me close as we danced under the stars. "They'll come around, and if they don't, then they'll learn to fear you," he said simply. "A Luna is second only to the Alpha in power. Anyone who challenges you challenges me." "That's not exactly comforting." "It's not meant to be," he replied. "Being Luna isn't about comfort. It's about strength. And you, my Luna, are the strongest person I've ever met." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to bask in this moment of joy and celebration and pretend that everything would be fine now that the ceremony was complete. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something dark. Something that wouldn't care about mate bonds or ceremonies or the happiness we'd fought so hard to claim. "What is it?" Kalen asked, feeling my unease through the bond. "I don't know," I admitted. "Just a feeling. Like we're standing in the eye of a hurricane, and any moment the storm is going to hit." He didn't dismiss my concern or tell me I was being paranoid. Instead, he pulled me closer and pressed a kiss to my forehead. "Then we'll weather it together. Whatever comes next, we face it as one." "As one," I echoed, and tried to believe it would be enough. The moon had set and the sun was rising when Lady Sarah appeared beside us, her face grave. "Your Majesty, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Kalen asked, immediately alert. "The kind that's about to become a war," she replied. "The Shadow Fangs are mobilizing. They're calling Darius's death an assassination and using it as justification to march on our borders." "How long do we have?" 3 days. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. Sarah's eyes cut to me. "They're demanding recompense for their fallen envoy. And they're specifically demanding you." My blood ran cold. "Me? They claim you're a stolen Shadow Fawn Luna who rightfully belongs to their pack." "It's complete nonsense, but it doesn't matter. They have an army, and they're using you as their excuse to attack." Kalen's arm tightened around me, his whole body vibrating with barely controlled fury. "They're not taking her. No, Sarah agreed. They're not. But they're coming. And this time, we need to be ready. I looked at Kalen, at the determination in his eyes, and felt our newly forged bond pulse with shared resolve. 3 days. We had 3 days to prepare for war, to shore up defenses, to do the impossible and save the pack from enemies who wanted nothing more than to tear everything we'd built down to ashes. Then we get ready, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. We survived last night. We'll survive this too. Yes, Kalen agreed, pulling me close as the sun rose over his kingdom. We will. Together. But as I stood there in his arms, watching the dawn break over a world that suddenly felt infinitely more dangerous, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle hadn't even begun. The arrest had been just the beginning. The ceremony was just a pause. And what was coming next would test us in ways we couldn't even imagine. The Alpha King had found his Luna. But the question remained, would we survive long enough to enjoy it?